Hi there. Well, what I'm going to look at is in these next three sections, 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6 is division. All right, and dividing with decimals. And to tell you the truth, for the most part, I would just use your calculator. Now I'll show you some that might be easier even without the calculator, and some ideas that to help you without a calculator. But on these five right here, I would just go ahead and put this in my calculator. And just kind of a couple of things. Remember, this goes in the calculator first. So it would be 84.48 divided by 24. All right. Here, obviously, you would just type it in. Pay attention to the negative. Your answer will be negative because if you have one and one is odd, then your answer will be negative. But really, for the most part, I would just use a calculator. And what your calculator is going to do, for instance, on let's say number 6, here you can't have a decimal out here. All right, this divisor here can't have a decimal. Focus that again. So your calculator is going to move that over twice, which means you have to move this one over twice. And we'll look at that idea here with another couple of examples. So what your calculator is going to do is it's going to take 943 divided by 23. All right, so it will move it for you. For instance, number 8. Here, you can't have a decimal here, so you have to move this over once, which means you need to move this one over once. So your calculator will take 67 divided by 93.8. But when you type in the original, it will do this for you. It takes care of all of that. The calculator will. So just kind of a quick review. But what happens if you're given something that maybe it would take longer to reach for your calculator and type it in that would actually be to do that? And that's these three examples here, just to kind of go through them. Not that you can't use your calculator, because you could. But if you look here, this bottom number called the divisor cannot have a decimal. So I would move it over once and move it over once. To tell you the truth, what I'm doing is I'm multiplying the numerator and denominator by the number 10. You can do that. 10 over 10 is like multiplying by the number 1. So then by multiplying by 10, it moves it over once, moves it over once. So this is 24 divided by 6, which is 4. Okay. And that's something you can look at, you could maybe do in your head here. But now here, look at this. We have this 0.3. Actually, I forget. I should put the 0 there on those, and I don't. I will. All right. So here I'm going to move the decimal over once. That makes that bottom number a whole number, which means I have to move this over once. So it's 1.8 divided by 3. Well, when you do that on your calculator, the decimal comes straight up. And so 3 goes into 18 6 times. So your answer is 0.6. All right, so just, you get rid of the decimal. And then if you were to divide it in division, the decimal comes straight up. Goes into 0 times, 0.6. Let's look at one more, just kind of little shortcuts here. This 4 right here, or this 0.04, you have to move the decimal over twice to make that a 4, which means you'll take the decimal, which is here, and move it over twice. You have to add 0 so that you can multiply it twice. So you end up with 1200 divided by 4. 4 goes into 1200, 3, and you get 0, 0, so 300. Okay, so I guess you can make them easier if you don't have a calculator, or you get into a math class where you can't use a calculator. You can make them a little bit simpler. Okay, and again, this, you have to have a whole number down here. Oops, let me move this down a little bit. You have to have a whole number down here, not a, well, an integer, I should say, because you could have a negative, but these need to be integers, and whatever you need to do to make it an integer, you have to do in the numerator as well. And then you go ahead and go through the division. All right. Let's see what else is in this section. This is section 5.4. This is the exact same idea of kind of what I was talking about earlier with doing with number 12 and 13. On number 11, just remember that here I am dividing and it has 3 zeros. So that means I'm going to move the decimal to the left 3 times. If I had been multiplying by 1,000, I would have moved the decimal to the right 3 times. But here in division, you'll move it to the left. 0.3562341. So I just took the decimal where it's at and moved it to the left 3 times. Okay, 12 and 13 are different. They look different than number 11. So what do you do if you have a decimal there? Well, just like what I told you on that sheet before, you need this to be a positive 1. So you move it over once, you move it over once. So your answer is 985.6. Now you have a 1 down there. So your answer is just 985.6 for that one. I don't know if that looks so slightly blurry to me. Maybe that helps. All right. So let me try, I'm gonna try a different pencil. So again, here you want a 1 underneath, and then you can just drop it. So you're going to move the decimal 1, 2, 3. So you'll move it 1, 2, 3. So now you have a 1. So your answer is 4. Let me write it out. 8320.1. So I started the 48 after the 8, and I moved it over 1, 2, 3. So now you have 48,320.1, or and 1/10. All right, so that's the difference between these right here. Okay, so here you move it to the left 3 times because of 3 zeros. Here you want to create a 1, 1. So you move it to the right. All right, just take some practice. All right, on something like this, on 14, they want you to practice your order of operations. Again, I would probably use a calculator. It tells you to simplify. I would multiply and then divide, and then the last thing I would do would be to subtract them. So just, 3.5 times 6.2, 21.7, and then 1.8 divided by 0.8, 2.25, and then I would subtract them. And come up with 19.45. All right, just kind of review of your PEMDAS. On something like this here, like a number 16, you do parentheses, I would subtract, and then I would square it, and then you would come back and take 6 plus what you get here, and then, oh, here, forgot I didn't see that division, I would do that division there. So in this case, this right here, 23.6 minus 17.9 gives you 5.7. And then you have to square it. So I will square it on my calculator. So 6 plus 32.49 minus, so I just did parentheses and squared it, well, 12.6 divided by 3, 12 divided by 3 is 4. 6 divided by 3 is 2, 4.2. And now I would come back and add and then subtract. So you have plus 6 minus 4.2, 34.29. Following your PEMDAS, 6 plus this minus this. Hey, and if you want to, you can still do this plus a negative idea, or you can change it to plus a negative right here, plus a negative. And so then it's 6 plus 32.49 plus a negative 4.2. All right, good. Okay, we're almost done with this section. On this one, 17, boy, calculators are wonderful. All right, find the average of the recent sales tax rates for several Midwest states given in percents. So these actually represent percents. They want to know the average. So we've done some averages before, just kind of a quick review. You would add these together and then divide by 1, 2, 3, 4. So you would take 6.25 plus 7 plus 4.23 plus 6 and divide by 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, and if you're using a regular scientific calculator, you need to remember that after you put all these pluses in, you have to press enter before you divide by 4. Okay. Otherwise, your calculator, if you add these and then divide by 4, it'll just take the 6 divided by 4. So you want to make sure it takes all of those. You add them all up, press enter, divide by 4. Okay. All right. Wow, that was a quick 5.4 section. All right. So right now we're going to look at going from given a fraction, find a decimal. And this is 5.5. And we're going to look at some of these. And again, calculator is very handy. So the first one here, you guys can probably see this. I would take 21 divided by 16. It doesn't tell you where to round off your answer. And if they do, you'll need to round it off. But in this case, they don't. So what MyMathLab wants is the 1.3125 is what they want. So these two are equivalent in value, 21/16 or 1.3125. They mean the same thing. On number 6, we'll just take 17 divided by 6. And we need to remember that our answer is negative because we have that negative there. Now I'm going to kind of put that to the side a little bit. How do you write this right here? Well, this first one's called a terminating fraction. It stopped. But number 6 is called a repeating fraction. So to write a repeating fraction, you put a bar over the part that's repeating, and that's probably just a review. And what we're going to learn is how to go from this to go from here to here. All right, how do you go from this to this? And there's some neat tricks. And we might wait until we do percent chapter, which is next. And that's, I'll remind you too that this is the last week that we're going to do 2 full chapters at once. So next week it'll be chapter 7, and then we'll do chapter 8. Then we'll do 1 section of 9 and a few in 10 and be done. So it's going fast. All right, let's look at number 7. So again, we'll take 3 divided by 7. Oh, wow. No, it's not repeating. So you would just have to write all of that. All right, well, hopefully they'll tell you to round it. I don't think it's repeating. 428571, 4285. Yep, it is. So we have 0.42857 1. And now here it starts to repeat. 428. Oh, but my calculator had that 6 right there. But I'm saying it repeats. I'm saying it's 0.4287, or excuse me, 0.428571, 428. The reason that's not a 5 is because your calculator rounded off at the end, and it always does that. So this is going to kind of have to reason through these. So here it's going to start to repeat this again. So kind of really look for a pattern. Look for a pattern. So it's 0.428571, and it would keep repeating. All right. All right, let's look at number 8. Oh, you know, going back to number 6, got the negative. My math lab would have said it's wrong. All right, let's look at number 8. 15 to, this will be probably the last one we do, because they're not too bad when you can use a calculator. So 15 divided by 8, is it repeating? No, it's a terminating, but it is negative 1.875. All right. Let's see, 4 divided by 15. No, this one repeats. Notice what it did at the end. It rounds off at the end. So even though, you know, you wouldn't have a 7, it would actually keep going 0.2666666666666 all the time. That last one, it does round off. So to write this one, you would have 0.2, and the 6 is repeating, but not the 2. So the bar just goes above the 6, because that's the only one that's repeating. I kind of wanted to get one where 21 divided by 40. That terminates negative 0.525. So it's negative though. So, all right. Okay, now let's look at some more repeating and some different types of, we have to change this to a decimal. But anyways, now we're going to round. Okay, so how do you round these off if it's repeating? Okay, here, what you do is we want to round off to the nearest 10th, and then we're going to go to the nearest 100th, and then to the nearest 1,000th. We're going to do all of those. So on this first one, we have 0.73 repeating. What that means is that it's 73737. You can carry it out a little ways, because you want to do that when you're rounding. Now we're going to start with the 10th. So we want to round to the nearest 10th. To round to the nearest 10th, we go to the 10th spot, which is right there, and we look to the right. It's less than 5, so we're going to leave the 7 alone. So our answer is 0.7, and you drop everything. You're done. So anything after the 10th, the spot you're on, it just drops off. Don't put zeros in there either. My math lab will count it wrong if you put in zeros. All right, now let's go to the nearest 100th. Okay. So here we're going to go to 10th, 100th. You just need to know those place values. So to the nearest 100th, we look to the right. It is 5 or greater, so we'll increase the 3 to a 4. So we'll have 0.74, and then you drop everything. It's gone. Don't put zeros, nothing. It's just done. So here's our 10th. Here's our 100th. Now let's do the 1,000th. And again, the key was just to kind of, you know, write the number out for a while. 10th, 100th. I'm going to erase our 100th mark. 10th, 100th, 1,000th is right there. There's our 1,000th spot. We'll look to the right. It's not 5 or larger, so we're going to leave our 7 alone. So we have 0.73. The 7 stays, and everything drops off. So we have a 10th, 100th, 1,000th. All righty. So they're not really too hard. And I think one of the key is to rewrite it, expand it out with that repeating. I went further than I needed to, but that's okay. All right. Okay, let's look at another one here. Let's look at 0.46. 0.46. Okay. I want to round to the nearest. I want to get rid of those marks up there. Sorry, just hang with me for a second. Okay. Okay, so on this one, okay, I just kind of copied it. I want to do the 10th, 100th, and 1000th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this out a little bit just so we can see the place values. The 4 isn't repeating, just the 6. I'll carry it out for a while. It doesn't hurt. It would just keep going, dot, dot, dot. There you go. So let's start with the 10th. You go to the 10th spot, which is, we're starting with this one, the 10th. You look to the right. It is larger than, it's 5 or larger. So to the 10th will be 0.5. And then you drop everything after the 10th spot. The 100th will go to the 100th spot. There we go. Awesome. We'll look to the right and we'll increase the 6 to a 7 because that's 5 or larger. So for the 100th, we have a 4, 7. So after the 100th, you drop stuff. And the last one is the 1000th. Okay. So now we're here to the 1000th spot. 10ths, 100ths, 1000ths. So here when we do this, we have 4, 6. Now this space, you look to the right, it is 5 or larger, so that's 7. And there you go. So there's our 10th, our 100th, and our 1000th. Okay. Now the next one, I'm hoping that kind of clears that up. Now the next one, what you have to do is take your calculator and change that 1/18 to a decimal. So you take, and it's going to be a negative, which is fine. 1 divided by 18. 0.05 repeating. So it's the 5 that's repeating. So when I write that down, I'm going to have a negative 0.055. That's probably far enough. It would just keep repeating. But that's probably far enough. And again, that last spot, the calculator rounded off. So, all right. So how do we round these off? So again, we're going to go to the nearest 10th. Cover up that. I like to have a clean one. Here. My table's not large enough. Okay, so here, there, get that out of the way. So we're going to go to the nearest 10th first. So the nearest 10th, we're going to go to this 0 is in the 10th spot. We're going to look to the right. It is 5 or greater, so we'll increase this one to 1. So negative 0.1. All right, there's your 10th. Now, if we were going to do the 100th, the nearest 100th, here, 10th, 100th, we look to the right, so we're going to increase this one. So the 100th would be a negative 0.06. I forgot to put the 0 in front. It's pretty normal for me. Okay, so this one to the nearest 100th, because you went to the 100th spot and you look to the right, so you increase this one. Okay, 1000th. Should probably have a 0 there. So we go to the nearest 1000th, which is right here. There's our 1000th spot, 10th, 100th, 1000th. And we'll look to the right. It is 5 or greater, so that thousandth spot will now be a 6. So we'll have a negative 0.056. The thousandth spot becomes a 6. The 100th spot became a 6. The 10th spot became a 1. And then you drop what's after. All right, so that's kind of how you do the rounding. This last one had a little extra step because you had to get on your calculator and change it to a decimal. But all right, perfect. That's done. Now let's look at the next page in this section. I want to make sure I cover things that you'll need to know. Oh, okay, a few story problems. You guys will be great. No problem. Looking at our first story problem here. In the 2017 regular football season, Ryan Fitzpatrick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 1,103 total passing yards in 163 attempts. What was the average yards gained per attempt? Well, to find the average, we have to find a total. So we want the total yards, which you don't have to add them up. They gave you the total yards gained right here, 1,103. Per in mathematics means divide. So we're going to take 1,103, which is the total yards, divided by the attempts. So we want to find the average yards gained. So you take the average yards gained divided by the attempts, which is 163. So you take out your calculator and you'll take 13 divided by 163. All right, so you think, all right, this decimal. So look on Pearson, look right next to the blank or right after the question, it'll tell you. In this case, round to the nearest 10th. So the 10th is the 7. So I'm going to look to the right. It is 5 or greater. So that 7 is going to become an 8. So it's 6.8. 6.8 yards per attempt. Yards gained per attempt. Okay. All right, so those are your units. But again, you just had to round. So, you know, some of these you'll be rounding. But you divide, per means divide. Great. Look at some other ones. All right. So here, find the gas mileage rounded to the nearest 10th. When they want you to find the gas mileage, it's the miles per gallon. And if you look at the price of gas, you'll want to have something that has a high gas mileage. So notice what I said, miles per gallon is what you want when you want gas mileage. You want the miles per gallon. And the miles per gallon means you take the miles divided by the gallons. Per means divide. Of means times, per means divide. So the miles divided by the gallons. So we'll just probably do one of these. 311 divided by 11.8. The miles divided by the gallons. Obviously, you don't want to make this harder than it is. So I'll take 311 divided by 11.8. And again, looks like we're going to be doing some rounding. You go back and look to the nearest 10th. So we come up here, we go to the 10th, which is the 3. We look to the right, it is 5 or larger, so the 3 will become a 4, 26.4. And you don't want any numbers after the 10th, not even zeros. All right, if you were, so you just leave it. Oh, and we should probably write miles per gallon. All right. Notice the symbol, miles per gallon. Notice that for the word per, we use a slash, which is used for division. It's a division symbol. Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay, now on these are more conversions. They want you to find the decimal notation for each number. So here, you know that you're going to move the decimal to the left twice. So you don't even need to reach for your calculator. It's just going to be 0.31. 1, 2, because you have 2 zeros. So you're going to move it over 1, 2 because of the 2 zeros. Here, you can just take 13 divided by 25, which we've kind of been doing before. So 13, well, there's other ways, but I don't want to. Okay, 0.52. So you can go from a fraction to a decimal pretty easily, especially with the calculator. -2 divided by 5. I actually can do that. You can actually do that in your head, because 5 doesn't go into 2, but 5 goes into 20. So you get 0.4. All right, so you know that one you can kind of do. Not 0.4, sorry, 0.2. I was thinking of point. I was thinking that we had 4 up there. Okay, or so sorry, this is no, that's point. Yeah, I'm right. It's 0.4. I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, so 0.4, because 5 times 4 is 20. So 0.4. And because of the negative, don't forget the negative. And there's a 0. 5 goes into 2 0 times. And you in division, you bring that straight up. Okay. All righty. Our calculators are great. Okay, how would you do something like this? Okay, here, this, I would take 48 divided by, you could take 48 divided by 5, and you could just do that on the calculator. 48 divided by 5 times 13.12. Okay. So you got 48 divided by 5. If you have a basic calculator, you could write that down, whatever that happened to be, times 13.2. And whether or not calculations with fraction and decimal notation together. It doesn't tell you where to round. I was just looking at that. So you'd have to write 125.952. But let's look at 22. What would you do? Well, here I would make this improper, just so I could enter it in my calculator. You know, people have different calculators, but I would take 5 times 4 and get 20, and add 1 and get 21/4. So I would take 21 divided by 4. So I made it improper so it's easy to type in. Plus 3.55. 8.8. Okay. Now, if you don't have something like this, you could have taken 21 divided by 4 and got 5.25, and then added those together, and then taken the 5.25 plus 3.55. Either way, you'll get 8.8. But that was the key. All right. I'm hoping that you're good at making it improper, especially after all that time we spent in chapter 4. Yeah, I think it was chapter 4. All righty. All right, let's look at 23. Okay, here, okay, to do this, you could take 7 divided by 3 times a -3.42. Okay, so you could find out what that is. Most calculators will do that. 7 divided by 3, then take that times negative. And I just want to caution you, the negative symbol is different than the subtraction symbol on calculators. So don't get those mixed up. So I'm not subtracting, I'm multiplying by a negative. So I'm going to push that right there. So I'll have a negative. See, I put a negative in there. 3.42. And I get a negative 7.98. Okay, now this is going to be interesting. How are you going to type this in right here? What is this? How do you do this on your calculator? Well, depends on the type of calculator you've got. Here you could go 1 point, I've already got the subtraction there. So 1.17 times 13 over 12. All right, so you could write it like that and it would be easier to type into your calculator. Remember, it's a copy dot flip. So you could do it that way. And that would give you, oh, let's see, 1 point, so just a second. All right, so here, this is, I would take the 1.17, I would do a copy dot flip. Okay, and then I'll show you here when you do that. One moment, please. I'm gonna need to pause this for us. All right, so what I want to caution you on how to do this, so that you don't get the wrong answer on your calculator. So one way is to do the copy dot flip, and then here you could take this 1.17 times 13. So let's do that. You said that. I think you could probably see it. So 1.17 times 13 divided by 12. Okay. And you end up with 1.2675. So 1.2675. What will not work is if you take 1.17 divided by, because, oh, you have that division. So you say, okay, divided by 12, and then divided by 13. No, it's you can't do it that way. What could you do other than the copy dot flip and get the right answer? Here you could, if you wanted to, when you put this in your calculator, 1.17, you could put parentheses. Okay, you could do this, and then you would come up with the right answer if you've got parentheses. So you just have to be real careful how you enter things. Parentheses means times. Uh-oh, what did I do? Oh, yeah, 12 divided by 13. All right, let me look at that real quick and see what okay, what I forgot is it's not a times, it's a division. So I need to redo that. Sorry. It's 1.17 divided by, and then I'm going to put that in parentheses. So I forgot that and I put a division. So here it's 1.17 divided by 12 divided by 13. So you do end up with the same thing as if you do a copy dot flip here, or 1.17 divided by 12 divided by 13. You'll need to put this in parentheses here, or just do the copy dot flip, and that would work as well. Sorry about that, I forgot that division symbol. I'm like, what's going on? All right, but either way, either do the copy dot flip, you can use parentheses, 1.17 divided by, and put that in parentheses and get the right answer as well. And then once you have that, you can take your negative 7.98, subtract 1.2675. So I'll go ahead and finish it. Negative 7.98, subtract 1.2675. And you're going to get a negative 9.2475. Okay, all right. Okay, wow, just learning different ways of doing this on your calculator. And there's other ways too, all right, that you can do. All right, we're finished with 5.5. And now we're going to look at 5.6, which is estimating. And whenever you see the word estimating, I'm always thinking, okay, make it easy. And when you do estimate, they usually tell you, well, here it's a multiple choice. So you'll kind of know where to round off to, because when you estimate, you round off. And there'll be times where they'll tell you round off to the nearest ones or round off to the nearest hundredths in order to make it easier. But on this case, let's go through some examples. All right, so we have use the prices below to estimate each sum, difference, product, or quotient, depending upon what the question asks for. Indicate which of the choices is an appropriate estimate. So how much more does the single serve coffee maker cost than the microwave? How much more? So when you see something like how much more, we're going to be looking at subtraction when you want to find how much more something is. So we'll take the single serve coffee maker, which is, we're going to say it's about $120, okay? Then the microwave. And I'll probably round that off to about 63. Or you could even say 60 if you wanted to. And our choices, it looks like we'll have to call that $60 rather than 63. So it's about $60 more if you were to subtract those two. All right, so 120 minus 60. Even if you were to keep the 63, you know, and when you subtract those, you get 57. The closest one would be that one. So, all right. Okay, let's look at number 6. Estimate the cost of 3 microwaves. All right, well, 1 microwave, we're going to say is about $60. So 1 microwave is about $60. How many would 3 microwaves be? You have 3 of these times 3, about $180, $180. So you're just rounding and answering the question. But again, you do need to know, am I subtracting? Am I multiplying? That kind of an idea. All right, let's look at number 7. I can move it up a little bit. About how many sandwich makers can you purchase for $110? So all you have is $110, and each of these sandwich makers is roughly $20 for each sandwich maker. How many could I purchase for 110? So what you're going to do is you're going to take 110 and divide it by 20 to see about how many of these can you purchase. Well, the zeros cancel. And 110 is, you know, pretty close to 10. Okay, so it looks like you can purchase about 5 of those. Okay, so roughly 5 of the sandwich makers for 100. It's about, you know, it might be a little over. You may only end up maybe doing 4, but you have a pretty good estimate, you know, around 5 is how many you could purchase. Okay, let's work on a few more. Now, here, they are going to tell you that you want to estimate by rounding as directed. So you're gonna round to the nearest one. You do that before you add, because that's the purpose, is to make it easier. You're just kind of finding an idea. So this first one, if I round to the nearest one, I look to the right, this will be 3 plus. Round to the nearest one, I look to the right, I'm going to keep it at 14. Round to the nearest one, I look to the right, it's greater, so I'll increase the 0 to a 1. So our estimate is going to be about 18, whatever. So again, you round and then you add. So if we were to do this to the nearest 10th, well, this is interesting. To the nearest 10th, we go to the 10th, look to the right. So we're going to leave it as 2.6. Go to the nearest 10th, we look to the right, we leave it as 0. So it just stays, it's just 0. Okay, it's not going to come into a factor when we're adding. Go to the 2, which is in the 10th, you look to the right and you leave it. So this one, we didn't increase it, it stayed 0. So when you add these, you're going to get 10.8. And that's it. All right. So again, they'll tell you where to round. You round, and then you go ahead and combine those. This one isn't too long. Let's go ahead and do this. To the nearest 10. So we've got ones, tens. So we're going to round this here. You look to the right, and it's larger, or excuse me, it's less than 5. So 280. And then you have a 0 there, and you don't need the decimals. Here to the nearest 10 is a 7, is the 7 spot. Look to the right. It's less than 5, so leave it as 70. So 280 minus 70 is 210. So you're just rounding and adding in this, or subtracting, whichever. Okay, now here, they're just asking you which choice would be an appropriate estimate, which is very similar to what we did on the other, that first page there with the coffee maker or sandwich maker. So what would be a good estimate? This is about 20, and this is about 5, and you're multiplying. So if you have about 5 20s, you have about 100. Here, let's see, if you had 30, we'll go maybe 30 times maybe 0.1 when you multiply. So that means when you multiply these, you'll get about 3, because you're going to move your decimal to the left once. 1 times 30 is 30, but you move your decimal to the left once. So it's about 3. Okay. This one is a division. 120. I would probably go 120 divided by 30. 28 is close to 30. I like that because I can cancel those guys. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, so estimating means round and make it easy, and then do the operation they want you to. Okay, let's do maybe a story problem. I don't know if we'll do both of them, but we'll see. Okay, Colby Jack cheese. Okay, Jill found Colby Jack cheese on sale for $3.22 a pound. Estimate her cost for 5 pounds. I would make this $3. And if you're going to buy 5 pounds, and this is what each pound cost, I'd multiply them and get about, it's going to cost you about $15. It's going to be a little bit more because you have a little bit more than $3, but it's roughly going to cost you $15, okay, for 5 pounds at a roughly $3 a pound. So I multiplied, I guess I should tell you, 5 times 3. Okay, let's go ahead and finish this last one and then be done with this lesson. Christmas spending. Okay, Thomas and Tamara have $326 in their Christmas Club savings account. If they would like to buy Christmas presents for 11 family members, estimate how much they can spend on each person. Well, what I would do, because this is 11, and I know 11 goes into 33, because there's a couple ways you can do this. You could take 330 divided by 11. Okay, that's pretty easy to do because 11 goes into 33 3 times 0. So you can spend about $30 a piece on those. Okay, 330 divided by 11. 11 goes into 33 3 times, and then you still have the 0. I guess another thing you could do, it depends on how, close you wanted it, is you could take 320 and divide it by 10 and make that a 10. We say, well, let's round them off and say, okay, maybe only have 10 family members close. So that means the zeros cross off and you end up with $32 a piece. But, you're roughly going to be 30, 32, somewhere in there. All righty. And they should tell you exactly where to round. Hopefully they do. They could even go 300, but that's going to get you close to this. 300, okay, which is rounding to the nearest 100, divided by 10, which is going to get you $30, around $30 a piece. Okay, all right. Well, I'm trying to decide if yeah. And they may want you to round to the nearest 10. Well, then that would be 30 divided by 10. So between 30, 32, you could also make this 330, which would probably be a better estimate than 320, is what I should have done here, divided by 10, which would be $33. But you kind of have the right idea. Just round to different numbers. And I'm pretty sure my math lab will tell you which numbers to round to. All right. Okay. Well, that's it for this section. Let me know how you're doing. If you have any questions on your math, I'd be happy to help. All right. Bye-bye.